I see what you're saying. So we're gonna update it right now. Okay, not a problem.
We're going to go ahead and get started. We wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about where we're at in terms of our Metro 15 program. And for us, this is part of what we're doing with respect to violent crime in a number of areas. And we're trying to work at both ends of the spectrum, meaning some programs like this one are very direct. They are about taking the most violent people off our streets and trying to keep them in jail. That's what this is about. It's a plain and simple, tough on crime approach that is now showing some results. Of course, at the other end of the spectrum, we're working on a number of initiatives around violence intervention, teen violence, and trying to sort of stop more folks from becoming on the Metro 15. But today we want to focus on Metro 15, and what we are sharing with the public today is that 20 of the violent offenders arrested so far so we've arrested our first Metro 15 plus 5 more, so 20 total since the Metro 15 program started. And all of these offenders, as a reminder, have lengthy rap sheets. They've committed multiple crimes, and they've essentially continued to harm our community and make us less safe. We are trying to remove them from our community. Now, these offenders have been identified by prosecutors. And the point of this is also to try and get folks that we have a good case for to keep them behind bars. And that's why this is a collaborative effort with our DA's office, as well as Bernalillo County Sheriff, as well as the AG's office, and actually some other law enforcement agencies even around the state. But we hope, as best we can, that there's enough casework and evidence and so forth around these folks to keep them behind bars. And we'll share with you how that side of the equation is working so far as well. Now, for us, this is about working together with other agencies, and I do want to just mention, if folks have questions, we can go into some details, but some of these arrests have been because of actually Santa Fe Police Department, Sandoval County, 2 from BCSO, 11 from our department, but 1 from the U.S. Marshals, 2 even from out of state. This is all as a result of, again, this elevated level of importance that my office has put on this, as well as, of course, APD, and trying to say that this is something that is important for our whole region to get these folks behind bars. Now, I also want to mention that this operation is something that we're not going to let up on. The idea about the Metro 15 is as soon as somebody is arrested, someone else takes their place on that list of 15. So we're going to continue to monitor this going forward and continue to provide updates to the public. Now, as just a reminder also, 2 things. One, we're doing this in a situation where we're recovering, climbing out of a hole of a decimated police department. And that's why it is especially important that we work with our partners on this and that our partners help us. Because we know that we got our first 100 officers of course, they really hit the streets last fall. We've got another 100 in the queue. My commitment to get 400 officers over 4 years, so far we are actually on track on. But it takes a long time to do that entire process of training, recruiting, and getting folks actually out on the field. And so for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue to have to rely heavily on partners to do this. Lastly, let me just mention that in many departments, this is always the case, there's different barriers in different divisions and so forth. Metro 15 is also a way for us not just to talk to other agencies about specific people we need to catch, but it's also about our departments working with each other. And so we have now lots of stories around how we have our investigative unit who's been tracking someone who's been working up a case, and then our field teams or our beat cops actually seeing them and then going out and actually arresting them. That's what this program is all about. Essentially, in many ways, it's the beginning of a return to form of what APD used to be doing about 10 years ago. So to hear more about that, we're going to hear from our Chief of Police, Mike Geier. I do want to remind the public, though, that a number of these arrests have also been because of Crime Stoppers. This is part of an elevated role the public can play to call Crime Stoppers. Again, these are old, proven techniques that we got away from, and we're going back to them because they work. And so when folks see folks on the Metro 15, please call Crime Stoppers. That has played a big role in this program so far. With more about this, our Chief of Police, Mike Geier.
Thank you. When we first announced this a few months ago, we said that our officers were motivated to go after these criminals that are driving the violence in our city. I can tell you from personal experience, nobody's more frustrated than our officers is when they make an arrest and somebody's released. We want to see these individuals face the consequences and be held accountable for their action and the crime that they're inflicting in our communities. Our officers are doing their jobs and they're making these arrests. And I think now it's very encouraging and rewarding that we see that most of these offenders are staying in jail. Just this past week, 7 Metro 15 offenders were arrested, as you will be able to check this chart this past week. Some other anecdotal stories. One of the arrests, Adrian Nieto right here. The officer that arrested him was a problem response team officer in the Southwest Area Command. He has dealt with this gentleman many, many times in the past, so it was very rewarding for him to be able to be involved in the arrest. But there was a degree of danger. This individual had a gun and was running through a schoolyard at the time of his arrest. At the same time, across town, that same day, last Wednesday, detectives took down Daniel Drake, the gentleman right next to Mr. Nieto. Again, another violent offender, 2 in the same day. So, we think sometimes as police officers, our job is just to do that, just take them into custody and hope that the system works for itself. But this time we're really getting more involved with the prosecution. They're identifying these problem offenders through their analytics and through their risk analysis. And we're also working with the prosecutors to keep them behind bars as best we can. And we can only hope that the courts will also see that these people are dangerous and not release them to the public. We don't want to be wasting our precious resources and manpower, put Band-Aids on problems that we can't solve. And so our officers, more than anybody, really want to crack down on these violent offenders and make sure they stay locked up and pay for their crimes. We have tied up into this, and the Mayor talked about other initiatives. One of our priority goals is to reduce gun violence in 2020. We have every unit in the department committing activities and measures toward addressing that to make that number come down in terms of the shootings with injuries and the murders that are caused by gun violence. And to that end, we've been tracking it weekly, and we'll have monthly reports. Just this past month, I've seen a report on the number of guns that are recovered and the people that are arrested with a crime that has a nexus to gun violence. And it's really encouraging. Hopefully that'll have move that numbers down in terms of the violence that we see at the end of the year as we continue this. The Mayor mentioned Crime Stoppers. That's even talking about how the civilian components work as well. Our crime lab, our detectives, our uniform officers, again, they're all doing proactive measures just to address this problem. Our officers signed up for this. This is what their job is, and yet every day they face the violence and put their lives every day to take these people off the street. We're dedicating a lot of manpower to this initiative. The release of this information goes not just to the one unit that's an apprehension unit, it goes to everybody so that the officers themselves can track these people down in their area commands or any information that they have regarding these offenders to get them quickly into custody. We can keep this sustained crackdown going on as long as it takes. We owe it to the people of Albuquerque to